Okay.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Recovery Broadcast today. My name is Brian, and my coworker Kirsten is here as well. We're going to talk about coping skills today. When life throws things at you that are difficult, we have sort of compiled a list of 20 different coping skills, things to keep in mind when you're going through tough times. One thing that's brought up a lot is that the only two things in life that are guaranteed are death and taxes, right? My coworker Kirsten pointed out that's a little bit morbid, so we'll try to add like a third in there. Your attitude, right? That can be controlled, and that's one of the biggest beneficial things to dealing with life stress and anxiety and coping is how you view the situation, right? So into every life, some tough times appear, but it's not the tough times that define us. It's how we deal with them, right? So number one on our list today is finding out the real cause of the problem. I'm a keen believer that if you can't see what's going on, really see, then you can't fix it, right? So we need to identify the problem in order to solve the problem. And another point to bring up is, treating just a symptom does not actually fix what the big picture looks like. So we want to treat the whole problem, not just whatever we think the main cause or the cause that might be brought up first, but what is the bigger, deeper problem that we need to identify that we can solve?
Right. For me, like if I'm acting out in some way, shape, or form, like if my behavior's off, or I'm like rude, or I'm impulsively shopping, or something like that, like those aren't the problems. Those are issues that I'm having in my life, but there's something else going on underneath all of it that's triggering these things to happen. So really digging through and finding out, okay, put that aside. I'm doing it, but let's look at that later. And finding out, like, what am I feeling right now? What am I thinking? Like, stuff like that. So I think this article digs a little bit more into that too, asking yourself that kind of stuff. Do you have anything else to add to that, Brian?
No, we can go on to the next if you're ready.
Yeah, so it actually goes right into it. The next point on the article we found was ask yourself the difficult questions. And really to sum it up, like looking at yourself and how do I feel right now on a scale of 1 to 10, like where am I at? Am I doing really icky or am I doing great? Is there a pattern to the way I feel caused by my environment? So is there things going on around me that are triggering these things within me? Is there a pattern to the way I feel caused by my beliefs? This is something that I struggle with a lot in life. Like I believe and I have these morals, but there's things going on around me that, trigger that inside of me that I don't agree with. And sometimes I act out on it. I don't have the ability to not react to it and believe that my beliefs are, the end all be all to life, that other people are entitled to opinions and like that life's allowed to happen. The last one is there a pattern to the way I feel caused by my work? And that's a huge one for a lot of people. Like we get stressed out or we get personally attached to our work and it triggers all of this stuff to happen within us. A big one for me when I started working at Recovery is I took everything personal, everything. It was my fault. I failed someone. I didn't do the right thing. I could have done more. I should have, would have, could have, all that stuff. So after you're like finding out, what the problem is, you're going through the steps and asking yourself, like, where am I at? Really sitting with yourself and figuring that stuff out.
Yeah, for sure, Kirsten. I when you were just talking, the idea came up in my head, like if I could just control the car to my right, to my left, and behind me, like everything would just go smooth, right? Like if everybody knew what I was thinking, what I needed, what I wanted, wouldn't life just be so simple and easy? And then dipping into our third one, which is noticing your reaction, right? So becoming aware of your surroundings, what the situation is, how it makes you feel, and how it impacts you. Um, back on that, noticing the patterns, right? Noticing how they impact you. Some simple questions that you can ask yourself are, how does it make you feel? How does it make you act? How does it make you behave? And how does it make you think? Um, so just sort of ask yourself those simple questions. It will help you identify what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's extremely important. And that again leads us right into the next part, which is the measuring and locating where you are now. And for me, I mean, when I think of that, I think about acceptance of who I am, where I'm at, but also the point of like, I always talk about how life's a beautiful thing. Like, I know where I'm at right now. I know how all this stuff is impacting me. I know what my reactions are now. So what can I do to improve it? I then have the ability to, make those progressions and measure, like, that's why it says measure it, like knowing where I'm at and where I want to go. And how I can change that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one thing that we can do to track our progress, no matter what life, throws at us and what we're trying to work through, is keeping a journal, right?
Mm,
Sort of logging your feelings, your thoughts, your reactions to things. There's power in just writing something down versus, just thinking about it.
absolutely.
And there's power in talking about it with others. Right. My sponsor's wife says a problem half solved, or a problem shared is a problem half solved, right? So you're getting on track. Another important one is to be honest about your progress. Being honest is a powerful thing. When you're honest with yourself, it raises your self-awareness, and anyone looking to achieve anything in the 21st century is going to be determined to improve their own self-awareness as we start to appreciate the power that this can have, right? So, um, well, honesty first and foremost is very important, especially when you're dealing with really anything in life. If you're not honest about how you're feeling, what's going on, um, how can you receive help from others, right? When somebody asks you how you're doing and you just say, "Oh, I'm fine," like, are you? You know, fine is one of those, like, those catch-all words, like, but is there more meaning behind that, right? So getting honest about that, being self-aware, is a powerful tool. Um, there's a little fun fact here that says that 95% of people believe that they are self-aware.
Mm,
However, only about 10 to 15% are actually self-aware. So that shows you like the incredible gap in the amount of people that think they're self-aware and the amount of people that are actually practicing self-awareness.
when I'm kind of bouncing it off you too, like when we first came into recovery, did we not believe that we were self-aware? Right? I thought I knew everything. I thought I knew why I acted the way I did, and my behaviors were because of X, Y, and Z. Like, I thought I had it down and knew myself. And over the last couple of years, I've learned exactly that. I was in that other percentile that I had no idea. I had no idea. The difference really, like, I don't know, for me, when I believed I was self-aware, like, I blamed everything on everybody else. Like, all of my feelings and emotions and my reactions and my behaviors were based on everything else around me. It had nothing to do with me. That was my belief of self-aware, self-awareness. And now it's like, okay, so what am I doing in this? What's my part in this? Why am I feeling this way? Actually looking into it and figuring out where I played a role in it. And someone commented on here, Jason commented on here, what about the need to justify emotions and behaviors? And I think that kind of goes hand in hand there. Like, that's exactly what I used to do, was justify everything. There was a reason, and it was somebody else's fault was that reason. And I think we all still to this day, like, get that urge to justify all of it. Like, it's okay because of, and I can do this because I've experienced that. Or if I went through what I went, or if you went through what I went through, you'd do it too. Those typical things. And it's really about working on that self-awareness, but it's a journey and it's a chore. Like it's really hard to actually sit back and learn that stuff about yourself. And it's like continuous practice of being self-aware. So I don't think there's like an easy answer to what about the need for it. It's an ongoing thing that we're aware of and that we do our best to not act on. I don't know if you have stuff to add to that, Brian, but
yeah, that's just such a great thing to bring up, because let's be honest, I can justify any emotion and any behavior that I do. I can justify it in my head that it's okay, that it's important, that it has to be done. But really, does it? Is it? Who is it affecting other than me? Who am I hurting? Like, we are kings and queens of justification, right? That's how we live. Well, that's how I lived most of my prior life, is justifying my actions, even though they were wrong or they were lies so you gotta definitely be careful with justification.
yeah. Yeah, I think it really just comes down to the work that we put into it. Like, how much do you want to change? And are you willing to actually take the time to sit back and be honest with yourself? And then going into the next point is like being honest with the people around you. One of the biggest things that broke that habit for me of justifying everything to everyone and to myself was, talking to other people and being honest with who I am to everyone around me. So like the longest time, I wore every mask that I could, no matter what it was. So once I was honest to my world and they started to see who I was as a human being, they could start pinpointing that stuff for me. Because a lot of times I have those blinders on and I still can justify it. So I think it's really important also. The sixth point is like talking to the people around you and being honest with everyone in your support circle. I'm not saying you have to go to the world and project your life, but at least in the people that you keep closest to you, like be honest with them about where you're at, what you're feeling, what you're going through, and your behaviors, and then look for guidance. We all need some guidance and some help because of that. We can justify it. We're blinded to it because it's ourselves, we're biased. It's ourselves at the end of the day. So
That's another good point, and it brings right back into the next one, which we've sort of already touched on. If you aren't fine, then say something, right? Don't assume that the people around you are just going to be able to read your mind and know what's going on. There's a little scenario here, and I'll also add to that. Don't assume outcomes, and try not to put expectations on how you think something is going to turn out. There's a little like working example here I would like to read, if that's okay. It says, I worked with someone that was petrified that work would find out how much they were struggling with their workload. This is what the conversation went like, and I'm sharing it so that you can ask yourself similar questions. Okay, so the client says, I'm really struggling to hold it together. And then I say, have you told anyone? And the client says, I can't do that. It would be professional suicide. They would be circling around me, ready to pick my bones. And then I say, do you know that to be true? And the client says, it's not worth the risk to find out. And I say, so if I don't say something, what are you agreeing to? The client says, feeling overwhelmed, stressed, about ready to quit. And then I say, and are you happy to stay there, or would you like to work somewhere else? The client says, obviously somewhere else, but I can't see how that's possible. And then I say, are you prepared to explore where you would like to be and how you would like to get there? And you can guess the answer, and using the tool below, guess what they discovered. So the client wasn't alone. Other coworkers were experiencing that same overworkload. And by saying something to his department leaders, they actually changed policies for everyone, and everything changed for the positive. So this client was completely worried that he was going to say how he felt, lose his job, be made a joke of, but 10 other employees were feeling the exact same way. He just had the courage to actually speak up and be honest, and the outcome was definitely not what he expected, right?
Right.
So, for me in my own life, I think that 95% of the time I put expectations on a situation, or I expect the outcome to go a certain way. It does not go that way. It may be more like 98% of the time. And that's why it is dangerous to predict or assume,
Yeah.
outcomes.
Yeah, I think I do the same thing too. And most of the time I talk myself into this black hole of like how terrible things are gonna go. And every single time for me, like it's never went as bad as I expected. It may not be the greatest outcome, but it's never as bad as I put myself into thinking prior. Everyone around me always says that. See, that wasn't as bad as you thought it was going to be, because I do, and I tell people about it. I'm like, this is going to be terrible. And so I think it's hard, though. It is. It's hard to not do that. It does get easier, but it's still one of those things that it's like an ongoing, like talking yourself through it, and self-awareness comes in where like, I do this all the time, so it's probably not going to be as bad as I think it's going to be. Yeah, the next one is take actions to change, and that's kind of what we were talking about too, is like recognizing those things about ourselves, and over time, like talking ourselves through it, and that's an action towards change. It's like one minimal thing. Instead of telling yourself, it's going to be the end of the world, telling myself, like, I know that I do this, so why not just calm down and go through it without sending myself into this spiral. And they talk about in this section, like asking yourself, what are the options that we have to change? What do I actually realistically have the ability to change in the situation? Whether it's your behaviors, or maybe it is like a career path or hobbies, whatever it might be that you actually have the ability to change, which is not other people's behaviors or any of that stuff. The only things we have control over are our behaviors, our attitudes, and, our actions, what we do with it. So long times I had the same mentality that you were talking about in the beginning. Like if everybody just knew what I was thinking and everybody just followed this path that I have them on in my mind, they're on this path. If they just stuck to the straight and narrow, like everything would be great in my life. When in reality, it came down to changing my own self, my own behaviors, my own attitude, my own, expectations, all that stuff. And really working on changing what I was doing with my life. 'Cause for a long time, my behaviors were adding to all of that uncertainty and fear and self-loathing and all that. So once I actually took the action and changed my lifestyle, changed the people I was around, all of that stuff, it started to look a lot different.
Absolutely. And don't underestimate the smallest of changes, because
Right.
that's how we make progress, right? We tackle a little thing and then another one and another one, and eventually they add up to big changes.
Yeah, I talk
Um,
about that all the time. One little personal thought. Like if you can change one thought, you're changing a lot that you don't even realize you're changing.
the ripple effect, right,
Yeah.
of that one action. A question I see is the difference between a gut feeling and self-awareness. That is a tough question to answer. I think that, intuition, I guess, would be considered a gut feeling. Um, that little voice inside that tells us, something bad's going to happen, or maybe I should turn right instead of left, even though I have to go left. Um, but I think self-awareness is more being aware about your surroundings. You know, not walking down a dark street at night. Um, you know, I guess being aware of your physical surroundings maybe would fit under the category of self-awareness, and also, I guess, um, yeah. Do you have anything to add on that? That's a good question. It's tough to answer though.
So my brain was going in the same relative idea. Like for me, self-awareness is like an action that's a tangible thing that I consciously work towards, based on past behaviors, past results, whatever the case might be. Like I know that if I'm in Wegmans, I always use Wegmans as an example, but if I'm in Wegmans and somebody smacks my cart, most of the time I'm going to get upset. So I work on my attitude and reaction to that kind of stuff. That's self-awareness, a small example, but an example nonetheless. Whereas like a gut feeling, I'm thinking intuition. And most of the time, like one of my friends told me once, like when you get that butterfly feeling in your stomach, like it means that you need to do something different than whatever it is that you're doing right now. You get that feeling for a reason. You're not okay with something that's going on around you. And that's like a moral thing within you, and I kind of took that to heart. Like if something doesn't feel right in my gut and I get that weird, anxious, uncomfortable feeling, like I'm doing something that needs to change. Maybe I should, like you said, like go left instead of right, or maybe I shouldn't be talking to the person or whatever.
Yeah, more often than not, our intuition is correct.
Right. And that's going on your own moral compass and your own beliefs and your own being, and that's been like that even in my active addiction days. I always got those feelings. I just chose to ignore them because I needed to do what I needed to do to get what I needed to get. So I think the difference really is that like gut feeling is like a uncontrollable thing that kind of just happens on its own, and listen to it when you feel you need to listen to it for yourself. And self-awareness is more of like an action and a thing that you consciously do, to become a different human being or a better human being based on whatever your own personal goals are.
This leads right into the next part of the change. Action to change is also to know the difference, right? So to realize when you can't control or you can't change something, which goes against our nature, right? We want to fix, we want to solve, we want to change, and sometimes acceptance, even though you don't have to like something to accept it, but you do have to come to a place where, okay, I have to understand and accept that maybe the example is somebody that you love passed away. You cannot change that. And you don't have to like it, but for your own healing's sake, at some point you have to accept that is what happened, and then how can I move forward, right? The serenity prayer is a great example for this, right? So, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, right? To realize when it's out of my control.
Yeah. Jason commented again, how to best get past second guessing yourself. So my personal thing with that is like when I came in to my recovery lifestyle, I obviously didn't trust myself. Every time I had ever made a decision in my mind, this is how I viewed it. However, whenever I made a decision, it led to, my world blowing up or me in a really bad situation that I probably couldn't get out of at that time. Now looking back, like I know that was my survival skills. That's just what I knew, all the stuff. And now it's kind of just like trial and error for me. It has been throughout this entire process. I've learned to slowly just push past that fear of trusting myself and knowing that like it's okay and this is who I am, and more recently I'm starting to figure out that Kirsten's Kirsten, AA doesn't make Kirsten, recovery doesn't make, none of that makes Kirsten. They're all huge pieces of my life, but not who I am inside, So learning like those morals, beliefs, all that stuff and creating my own little path, but it takes time and it takes practice to like push past all of that. What everybody else has always told me I need to do. And all of my fears have always told me I need to do, pushing past all of that and like really trusting just to go with it, and accepting the fact that like, if I fail, it's okay. I'm trying to learn who I am, what my morals are. I know for me, when I came into all this, like I didn't even know who I was anymore. I had no idea what was right, wrong, up, down. I had no idea, it was so clouded. So,
and to add to this too, like it's very important to get, healthy, sober supports around you, right? Because my drinking and drug using was not the issue. The issue was my thinking, right? My thinking, my wiring is not wired properly, right? So my best thinking gets me where? It gets me into car accidents. It gets me broke. It gets me homeless. It gets me using, sick, dead, or in jail or institutions. So getting a good group of sober supports around me that I can bounce my ideas off of they can usually point out like, well, that's a good option, but what about B, C, D, E, F, and G also, to
Right.
consider. So, it's important to bounce my ideas, thoughts off of others before I act on them. I think that's kind of a good checks and balance system.
Right.
For
Right. And
that.
like for, recovery for me talking about it, like it's holistic. It doesn't even have to be, just alcohol and substances. Like it's a lifestyle. So that's where recovery came in for me. These are like-minded people that want these same things out of life to change and be a better human, not just put down these things, these tangible things. So I think that's great, bringing that up. You want to read one more? We're like halfway through, and then we can. So
Sure.
the last one on here, number 10. Well, not the last one, but ask yourself, are you creating it? And she says in here, some of life's stresses are man-made, and I'm not talking about someone else. I'm talking about you. It's an ugly fact that none of us want to look at. So be brave. However, have the strength to ask, am I creating this stress? Remember to be honest and let the answers come to you. I like that when I read that because we've kind of touched on it the entire time. Really sitting back and looking at it and being honest with like, what am I doing to create all of this? Because like you made a good point in the beginning, like it's about your attitude, really. So no matter what's going on in my life, like, yeah, all these stressors could be going on. However, I have the option to have peace and acceptance with it. I have that option. If my car is on fire and the phone isn't working and I couldn't get to work today and whatever, all those things, like I have the ability to change my mindset and just be calm throughout it. So really, am I creating it or am I, sitting back and letting life happen and just doing what I can to change those things and redirect, the path that it's taking.
And on the same token, when I sit back and just let things be, there's a complete difference in the amount of stress, anxiety that I bring into my own life. Probably 75% of the stress, anxiety, fear, obsession, all of those things, more than half of those things I'm bringing into my own life because I'm acting before I think, or I'm, just creating unnecessary, add-ons to whatever the situation is. And that's why, that's another reason that it's good to recognize that my thinking is off and that I do need, other support to bounce my ideas off of.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I think that's a good spot to end it. It's halfway through. So at some point we can pick back up on the article. We do coping skills frequently. So we can save it and pick it back up at another time. But yeah, for anybody watching that needs anything at all, services, the numbers on the screen. You can also Facebook message us. We appreciate you guys jumping on and all the comments that we got today. That was great, giving us stuff to roll off and answer your questions. And I hope that we did, help you guys with some of those questions.
Also, Kirsten posted the article in the beginning of the chat. So if anybody wants to take a look at it themselves or finish the other 10, and just know that all of our peer services, support services, membership services, those are all free of charge. So take advantage if you need.
All right, guys. Happy Wednesday. It's supposed to rain today, so maybe hunker down and watch a movie. But thanks for joining on, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Take care, everybody.